Now joined by David Osiany, who is a political and governance analyst. He's a consultant, and lately he's been given a job by the government. He's a committee member of Chemelil Sugar. David, thank you for coming. And Silvanus Dori, Member of Parliament South Mugirango, they joined me to talk about this. Gentlemen, I'd like first to begin talking about the Orange Democratic Movement. Incidentally, you all belong to ODM.
No.
Incidental, David. All right. We know that today, two members of parliament, that's Aisha Jumwa and Silvanus Dori, are supposed to appear before the disciplinary committee. Now, they have said that they will not be appearing before that committee. Of course, the reason why ODM has summoned them is because they have shifted their allegiances. It's been a discussion online. We've seen a lot of people weighing in this discussion. And one of the things they're saying, gentlemen, is when you lose allegiance to the sponsoring party to parliament, then you ought to quit. Now, because you're a member of ODM, let me start with that.
Thank you very much, Ken. The Dori Aisha question is altogether dicey. But it is essentially about respecting the rule of law. In this country, we need to ensure that we institutionalize the rule of law to an extent that if anyone were to fall out of it, then we would say various yardsticks have been set before. But if it is done in isolation, then people would raise alarm and said we are targeted. ODM is led by Raila Odinga, who set an example himself when he ran to become, when he was in Ford Kenya and they had a fallout in Ford Kenya. He decided to resign from Ford Kenya and contest the seat of, Kibra, Langata then, as a member of parliament on NDP, and he won and came back to parliament. We need to have principles. However, in the recent past, the principles of adhering to the constitutions of political parties in the country have not been revered. They have not been respected. And for that reason, many others have continued with the same trend because they know there is no punishment for it. And so to punish Aisha and Dori at this time, for others would seem as though they have merely been targeted because they are not the first ones to misbehave this way. However, what Aisha and Dori ought to have done is to appear before that committee, that disciplinary committee, because they still fly the flags of Orange. They have their seats, courtesy of the Orange Democratic Movement Party. Aisha is even a commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is one of the most plum jobs. A commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission is an equivalent of what used to be the assistant minister before we changed the constitution. It's a very powerful position.
Okay.
And because she owes it to the Orange Democratic Movement Party, she should have gone to the disciplinary committee and explained herself, probably elucidated on examples and cases where other people behaved as she did but were not punished for doing what she is doing.
Okay.
But when you then decide that you will not even show up for that disciplinary committee, what essentially you're doing is to tell them, guys, I just do not give a hoot because I have taken my, trajectory and path. And it has been made clear because at some point they said, there is the handshake, and because of the handshake, Jubilee is one, the president and the deputy are one. That's been the argument they put.
Okay.
But the Orange Democratic Movement side has said, we have warned you that there is no need for starting campaigns for 2022 in 2018.
But even that argument, David, about Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta, the handshake, and the argument that it's now one, that Raila Odinga has decided to work with Uhuru Kenyatta. I think in several occasions he has made it clear, I have not changed parties. I have not moved to Jubilee Party. What I'm doing is just helping the president and bringing some sanity into the kind of environment, political environment we have now. So it's a stale argument.
No. It's not a stale argument. I think what the president and the former prime minister are trying to do is to forge a union going forward for the country.
But it's not a movement to the other party.
So no, it is not.
You can't say that Raila Odinga is working within the Jubilee Party.
No, he is not.
Then that argument from the members of parliament can't suffice.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Let me speak to Osoro, his view on the same. The fact that ODM plans to get rid of these people, these two members of parliament.
Let me first say that ODM is the most undemocratic party in this country. And they should actually consider changing the name, the D part, from democracy to dictatorship. And I say that with authority because I've been a member of NASA, and I'm actually falling victim today in the afternoon because I'm told I'm being removed from the committee. Yes. And the name has been fronted by the minority leader, Honorable Junaid Mohammed.
And why? Just before we proceed, why are you being removed from the committee?
Because I stood with Kenyans on taxation issues.
You are the members of parliament who decided to go against the position taken by the party.
By the party, by the presidency, and all through. Okay. And I actually led the choir to sing against the taxation. But having said that, on the very position of the commission, I want first to be on record that Aisha Jumwa is going nowhere, and any other person.
What do you mean she's going nowhere?
She's holding a constitutional office. There is a very big difference between House leadership and constitutional office. Her constitution, she is actually a commissioner under Article 127 of the Constitution of Kenya. And the removal of a commissioner is enshrined under Article 251, where a tribunal must be involved and stuff like that. So calling Aisha Jumwa for disciplinary questioning and stuff like that, that's how she speaks with confidence, because she's actually backed with the law. It is not easy. It's not something that you just say. That is not a House leadership position. It's not a minority leader position. It's not a chief whip position.
ODM attempted to do that, and it was impossible to remove her because she was backed by the majority in parliament. So they've never tried. They've just been saying. The time Wanga was removed because she sprinkled water. You remember that?
Exactly. That was then in the last parliament.
In the last parliament.
But let me say this. I find the handshake very hypocritical, and especially on the side of.
Before you go to the handshake.
No, that's where I'm leading. I'm actually going to the Aisha Jumwa thing.
Yes, the ODM.
That you are being told, fine, we are forging unity in this country, just like my friend David has said, that the handshake is about the unity of this country. But unity wants to, ignore one other party. That you are telling people that you can shake hands with His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, but do not deal with William Ruto. I mean, what are you talking about? I thought you shook hands with the presidency, the executive, and now you want us to work together as a country.
It's about their allegiance. So, it's about their allegiance. It's not about working with someone.
Raila himself is actually working with Jubilee, and Jubilee is the president, the deputy president. So why is it that you want people to work with His Excellency the President, but you do not want to work with somebody who is
you've also been saying working a lot with the deputy president.
And I do not. I'll not apologize for that.
Because you may be the target next for NASA.
Because the point here is this. The point here is this. There is no indiscipline. There is no gross misconduct on the side of Aisha and what they're actually doing, they are following the footsteps of
Raila Odinga. Let's listen to this, then come back to this discussion. Let's listen to the soundbite from Aisha and Dori.
Na mimi nataka niwaambie, mimi watu wasiwadanganye, hakuna barua mimi nimepewa kuapia before the disciplinary committee ya chama cha ODM. Maana tarehe 10 na mambo gangu muhimu sana na constituency. Kwa hivyo kama sina kazi tarehe 10 nitaenda holiday. Tunaelewana?
Ni watu kwamba hawana mwelekeo. Ikiwa wewe uko tayari kufanya kazi na serikali, wewe umeshika ngazi ya juu, sisi wadogo tuache tushike ngazi ya chini. Ligi yetu ni ya Ruto, tuache tutembee na Ruto. tuache hizi dededede nyingi ambazo hazina msingi. Iko wakati sisi tulikuona wewe wafaa, tukatembea na wewe, tukatoa mali yetu, tukaacha mabibi zetu. Wengine sisi mabibi zetu walikuwa ni watu ambao kila mwaka wanazaa, tukawaacha pia, ili tuone wewe vipi utafaulu. Lakini si Dori, si Aisha, wala si kiongozi yoyote aliyesema wewe usiwe rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Ni Mungu ndio alitoa uamuzi. Sasa kama tumesaidia upande huo, na sisi tukiamua sasa tunataka kusaidia upande huu kama wapwani tukiwa pamoja, iko makosa kweli?
Okay, I think they're very adamant. They are very adamant, and that's not the only time they've spoken about this. In the last week when the Deputy President was in the coast, they repeated this several times, and she said they will not attend, so it's done. So I want to talk about the disciplinary measures going forward legally, what the party do, what the party constitution would say about that. But just finish your sentiments, having heard what they have said, the kind of defiance they have.
What they're saying is actually very right, because as I said earlier, it is actually hypocritical to say that you're forging unity of this country, but you do not want any person to engage the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. You know, we are talking about the Deputy President. I mean, when he goes to coast, for instance, he goes with goodies. He goes and pushes for projects. I mean, it's of course their constitutional right, but they are political. They are equally political. But when Raila goes to coast, he only talks about handshake. I mean, really, we can't be talking about the handshake all through. We need to be talking about development now. We should change tact and talk about development. And by the way, why should the ODM party feel bad, you know, over the independent thinking of members, you know, when we do not really know who will vie in ODM in 2022? Raila himself said earlier that out of the agreement they had with NASA, coalition partners, that 2022 probably it could be Kalonzo. So why is it so bad when members interact? If truly election is very far, then can't you leave people to run up and down, and then, you know, probably you review your position?
You want to take me back to talking about ideals and principles of political parties and your allegiance to your political parties. That's why you're drawing me to
allegiance is not bad, but listen,
relating with courtesy of you sponsoring political party.
Fine, but even Raila Odinga was in NASA, and he shook hands with Jubilee. So what is wrong with that?
Let me make this clear.
Okay.
Because we risk in losing focus. And as my friend Silvanus says, let's talk about development. And the greatest hindrance to the talk on development is political campaigns ahead of 2022 elections at this time. And so I want to make, because we are going to create an impression that the Deputy President is untouchable, and whoever touches him is bound for hell and will be punished ruthlessly. That's not the case. Raila Odinga and I think the ODM party have been put to task to explain time upon number why is it, he was even, I think, interviewed by this house, being asked what is so wrong with the Aisha and Dori supporting William Ruto, to which he answered that it's not that they hate the Deputy President. The thing is, when we get into a campaign mode 4 years away from an election, then we are going to be distracted. When the basis of touring the country to give goodies is hinged on 2022, you know, I have done, so let's remember me, 4 years away, we create a distraction from very important things we should be talking about at this time.
Okay.
At this time, we should be pushing for, you know, academic and industry conferences on the Big Four agenda, where we call our biggest players in the field to come and critique or add some knowledge to the Big Four agenda conversations. We should be having conversations around, is NHIF working? Has it been improved? Yes, it has. And to what extent? What should we do better? We should be saying that South Mugirango, where the Member of Parliament Silvanus is one of the places that has the most fertile soil and greatest climate for agriculture. And what would be their role in, what role would they play in ensuring we have food security, which is part of the Big Four agenda?
Okay.
We should be saying companies like Chemelil Sugar, where I'm privileged to serve on the board, are part of the cogs that drive the manufacturing pillar of the Big Four agenda. How many companies of that kind do we have in the country? What is their financial position at the moment? Do they add economic value to the people of the country or not? If we let politics deviate us from these conversations, then we are unable to achieve the fundamentals of the Big Four agenda or even set pace for who will take over from President Uhuru Kenyatta in actualizing some of these. Okay. And that is what the fight has been about. Yes.
Okay. I completely agree with my friend David, completely. And I want to tell him that what he's talking about, you know, all those things about development and everything, are only found in one man, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. The other side of politics is only found in one man, Right Honorable Raila Odinga. I mean, I want you to look and weigh the two. And that is why I said, I think we are getting the cat out of the bag too fast. You know, when the deputy president goes, for example, to Coast, he does not go there to campaign. He goes there to commission projects. He does not go there to campaign. Now, the other time we saw a rally somewhere in Siaya where the Senator, James Orengo, introduced the 2022 politics and said our candidate is Raila Odinga. So who is campaigning? Okay, what did Raila go to do in Siaya? Did he go to launch a project? Did he go to commission anything? He just went to campaign.
But that's why I'm saying.
But William Ruto, the other side, went to Coast, you know, commissioned projects. The other time he was in Kisii. We are going again to Kisii next week to commission several projects and stuff like that. But we've decided, and I think because of lack of activities and I think at this rate I need to say that His Excellency the President should find some activity for Raila Odinga so that when he moves around the country, he has something to tell people. Because as it is right now, any function he holds or anything that he does, it's politics.
But Raila Odinga, you mentioned rightly, he didn't even speak about politics. James Orengo, same as William Ruto, he never speaks about politics. He speaks about development, he launches projects, but the people he travels with, you included, speak about politics. And 2022.
But that's why I'm saying, and
I'm exactly. Let me ask you, and this I should actually, this should be clear.
Yes.
You've said the people he travel with, or
yes.
he travels with.
Yes. Aisha,
Dori, myself,
Maha, you.
Yes, speak about politics.
Yes.
I mean, really, you've commissioned the project. Fine. You cannot separate politics and development. It is not him who is speaking, it's me.
Yes.
That my choice is, just like your choice could be like 2022, my choice as Osoro is that I've decided to support William Ruto. So what is wrong with that? I'm not campaigning for him. He should campaign for himself. Okay. Why should you beat him? Why should you
But why are you declaring right there? After, when he comes to South Mugirango, when he comes to South Mugirango and probably he's launching a project, probably it's a 3-block school, right?
Yes.
He's done that, and then immediately after launching the project, you come out and say, for us, look at the kind of development that is following Deputy President William Ruto, and this is the reason why we are behind him for 2022.
I'll tell you there are so many reasons, and you see, if you listen keenly to, this morning I've been with my friend Honorable Mohammed, and Mohammed was telling me that he traveled with the Deputy President commissioning several projects in Coast. And at the end of the day, he got shocked that he's actually tired and even sickly, but the Deputy President still wants to go to one more function. So there are so many things that we look at when you say that that gentleman called His Excellency William Samoei Ruto is a workaholic.
Okay.
And this is when we say that this is the right person for this country. He's out of the character. We want Kenyans to see that this is the character that we've seen.
Okay.
However, I agree with you that it is too early to campaign. But I also want to say this. We are not campaigning. We're only stating what we believe should be happening in 2022.
You have a minute to wrap this up. You have to take a break.
You know, Silvanus is a very good friend
politician.
of mine.
No, he's not a politician.
He neighbors my constituency where I almost became
Rongo and
so I know him from back in the day. Yes. But when he says that he agrees that we should not politic now and then says
that he will state his position.
It is very easy to be distracted when we spread our pressures on different things. There is no way we are going to pursue proper development and assess and evaluate the impact of those projects and then be politicking at the same time. what Silvanus should have said is fair enough. The deputy president will come to commission because he's been sent by the president. He's not doing it on his own. He is an appointee of the president. If the president today decides that the deputy president does not go to commission things on his behalf, the deputy president will not do any of those things he does, unless he just go to churches and schools and donate money. But commissioning things like roads are completely at the behest of the president. He does them on behalf of and for the president. So, as parliamentarians and political leaders, because I cease to call Silvanus and myself politicians. We are political leaders. What we ought to do is when the project is commissioned, we then need to assess the impact that project has had after 1 or 2 years and say we had no road here. The president sent the deputy president to commission a road here. We have used it for 2 years. And what has that resulted into? It has resulted into our farmers accessing markets, which has then translated into the economic growth and the improvement of living standards in our areas. And for that reason, it is A, B, and C. Now, if we at the commencement, not even actualization of any project, at the commencement, we are going to declare that we are one particular person is a workaholic, he has commenced this, and so he should be president, then I will argue, then we should go to Makueni where we have actualized, not just commenced, projects that have been impactful on society. But that as it be, that as it may, as he said, James Orengo also brought up 2022 politics. And I don't want to speak from both sides of the cheek. I am saying that 2022 politics should be let to rest so that we focus our energies on what truly can make sense economically for this country. Everyone involved in it, like him and the judge, should
we need to take a break.
This discussion.
Okay. Just ask the question in 30 seconds because I have to take a break.
Yeah,
I have to answer in 30 seconds.
The question is this.
Yeah.
What is talking about politics got to do with development? I mean, really, we've commissioned a road.
Okay.
The contractor is on site. I've talked about 2022. Does the contractor stop and carry the excavators out of the site because I've talked about 2022?
All right, gentlemen, stay with me. We have to take a break. We come back. David will have an opportunity to answer that question. What has that got to do with the contract on the ground commissioning? And when we come back, I'd also like to talk about one factor that also came out last week when Deputy President said that Raila Odinga is out to undermine and remove him from the Jubilee Party. We'll talk about that and party hopping in this country. Stay with us. We'll be right back on NTV Today. Nairobi, we still have South Mugirango Member of Parliament, Silvanus Dori and David Osiany talking about this. You had the right to respond because I want to go to another discussion. Where does doing projects and politics connect? That was the question.
No. I mean, the focus for me, like I said, is what are we able to achieve immediately? Does the initiation of projects guarantee jobs for young people today? Which is our biggest problem.
But
does it?
How does that affect?
Does it help us resolve issues around the massive unemployment rates that we have in Kenya? Are we part of laying the foundation for tomorrow by setting up the tempo for this Big Four agenda and even the Vision 2030, if you were to amalgamate that into the Vision 2030, or the global SDGs? Are we able to guarantee our children a better tomorrow by commencing projects? Those are the questions, the fundamental questions. When all is said and done, all these things must get down to one thing: creating jobs for young people and ensuring that young people have ways, sustainable ways of earning a living.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, that is not quite clear because, I was very particular that along the way as we launch projects, we of course offer jobs to our young people. Right now, as we're speaking, we are doing about 40 kilometers of road within my constituency. Young men who are working there are now, you know, they can get a living within that particular day. They can get something, bread by the end of the day. And it does not really stop our talk of politics does not really stop the project from ongoing. The budget allocation has already been set and projects are all ongoing. Now, there's something he also said about the deputy president that, of course, is being sent by the president. I do not deny that. I can't deny that. That is total truth. But I also want to tell him that, you see, the budget making process is done by parliament. And, but then when it comes now to pushing for projects within an area, it is the prerogative of the executive. And that is why when you're politically incorrect, you hardly get your projects in your constituency, because we've really localized our politics in such a way that even development is looked at on the side of on the side of the coalition you are in. And that is why you'll agree with me. There are some areas in the southern part of Nyanza whereby some guy or any person or even the deputy president can go and commission a road, and people will peel it off or pull it off and say, okay, fine, we do not want this, because we've really politicized everything around. Everything is politics. Even if it's development, we think about politics. However, you cannot separate a politician from politics. Our structural way of talk, or the way Kenyan politics is defined or is grafted, it's in such a way that you do politics, you do development. Today as we speak, 1 year down the line after I was elected, there are guys in my constituency who are already talking about 2022. And those guys keep me at bay. They keep, vying for presidency. Again, why people talk about 2022 a bit more earlier is because there is no incumbent as we speak right now. So that any person who will be talking about 2022 will not be an incumbent. It's not President Uhuru Kenyatta. It will be fresh people. And you see, if you look at a beautiful girl and you do not talk to her, and you just wave and don't talk to her, another man comes and talks to that beautiful girl. Why should you complain that you've come late? Why should you complain? So there is a beautiful girl in the name of the presidency. Any person talking about that beautiful girl, allow us to talk, so that we do not tell us that by 2022 you never said. But still, that does not stop any person from doing development. It does not stop anything, because all development projects are already, in the budget.
So it's politics of development.
No. It is politics of development.
Let's say this. Politics must not be campaign. The two can be delineated. They are very different. Politics, basic description, who gets what, when, and how. Distribution of resources is what politics is about. It is not entirely about campaigning. I want us to appreciate that to be the deputy to a sitting president means he relies on you as a support system. You must therefore buy into the vision of the president and be a true support system. It is almost impractical or impossible to achieve that if you are divided in your role as a deputy to the president and giving strategic support to the president, and also a candidate for 2022. Agreeably, we will have to inevitably discuss 2022 politics. What I am trying to implore us to do is to let that talk come when it's almost a year to that election or thereabouts. Naturally, that will come into place. But while we are still doing all this, allow us to agree here, Silvanus, that you, the deputy president, Raila Odinga, James Orengo, everyone else, has to channel their energies towards either supporting the president or holding him into account to ensure he achieves his pledges to this country. It's impossible to do it.
That is what we are doing. We are supporting the Big Four agenda. We are supporting development. We are launching projects. We are commissioning roads. We are giving buses to schools. I mean, what we are doing is to support His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya.
Fair enough.
But along the way, as we do that,
You find
we also
yourself asking for
votes. We don't find ourselves.
You
we do
plan
not even
it.
ask.
It's deliberate.
We actually do not even ask for votes because I think, again, we need to define what
No,
campaign
you ask
is.
for votes.
We need to define what campaign is. Campaign involves a lot. It involves branding, it involves party, it involves, manifesto, it involves a lot of things. There is no manifesto that has been launched for 2022, so there is no campaign. There is no person who's declared a party of choice in 2022, so there is no campaign.
No, when
there is no branding,
the deputy president says,
there is no campaign.
What we do now will depend on if we get the votes in 2022 or not.
Deputy president never said that.
No, he said it. He said it. He said it. That they have to.
The deputy president said this, and I think it's very clear. He said that by 2022, people will separate those people who've got mere words and people who are
said our work
oriented.
right now is to provide. Our work right now is to implement our manifesto. Then come 2022, you will judge for yourself.
Exactly. What is wrong with that? What
Nothing
he's
is
trying
wrong
to
with
tell,
that.
what he's
Nothing
trying to
wrong
say
with
is this, that clearly he stands a chance, he's shown interest in the presidency.
He'll be judged based on what he does.
He tells you that, fine, judge us, if you want continuation of the system that is development-oriented, then I'm the right person. Because the president is doing the big four, and I'm in support of what he's doing, and that is the deputy president. I'm trying to think the way he probably define his mind out of his. And you see, when he said that, he's saying that one in the midst of launching a project. So we need not to be looking at politics.
No.
We need to tell people, and the media should be telling people this. He went to Mombasa and did some hospital. He went to Mombasa and did some 2 or 4 or 5 roads. He went to Mombasa and launched, or rather officially opened a school, fully funded by the government of Kenya. You should be saying that. That is what people should be talking about. He went to churches and donated money. He went to church and helped build, and he lived by the confines of the good book, Haggai chapter 1 verse 7, that says that, go to the mountain and bring all those things and build the church. And that is what he did, voluntarily. But what are we doing? We are focusing on what other people said about 2022. Why are you sad? Why are people scared about the Deputy President being the president of this country?
Ken,
yes.
I want us to hold Silvanus to account on how many of the projects launched by the deputy president have fed into the Big Four agenda. You see, as a policy person, I look futuristically at the impact of our projects today in the future.
Very true.
The building blocks of our future. And that's why initially I did not even appreciate the Big Four agenda. I found it hollow. But as I assessed the drivers of economy, I appreciated the Big Four agenda. And this is it. The Big Four agenda is segmented, Health, you have manufacturing, you have affordable housing, and then you have food security. If the projects launched do not seem to be in support of the Big Four agenda, of course, most of them ought to feed and tie in, of course. That's guaranteed. You cannot have affordable housing if you do not have roads that lead to them. That's fine. But is Silvanus able to tell me today, out of the projects they have launched, how has it impacted on addressing, for example, the unemployment issue? What are the ratios and the percentages we've been able to say that our unemployment percentages came down from 40% to 33% because of the following projects that we launched. How do they address the bigger issues of the future for this country? That is why I am saying, if we do not play politics, we will have time to focus on how each action, each project will tie in into a better country, as opposed to tying into a better 2022 presidential election.
We're coming
That's
back.
what I think we should discuss before we go to the referendum
and the other issues. All right, we're coming back to finish this discussion because we need to discuss a lot more other things that are happening in the country. All right, from today in history, let's come back to studio, and David Osiany still stays with me, and Silvanus Dori is still here with me in studio. Next, we're discussing allegations that NASA leader, ODM party leader, Raila Odinga intends to drive Deputy President William Ruto out of the Jubilee Party. Before we discuss that, let's listen to this.
Hamuwezi kunifukuza ODM ati mukanifuata ati munanifukuza Jubilee. Haiwezekani. So if you think you are going to use the handshake to export conmanship into our party, we are telling you that's not going to happen. Fanyeni kazi ingine ya maana. Kama ulidanganyana sijui siku za KANU, ukadanganyana sijui siku za code, ukadanganyana sijui wakati wa NASA, hapa Jubilee hakuna nafasi ya kudanganyana, my friend.
All right, gentlemen, I read a lot out of that statement, but I want you also to read something out of statement. And Deputy President is very clear, William Ruto is very clear on this. I don't know how Raila Odinga intends to do it, but perhaps let me begin with you. You travel a lot with Deputy President, and you are a personal friend of the Deputy President. Is this something that really concerns him, or it was just something that he said at the spur of the moment in Mombasa?
No, he's just sending an alarm to Right Honorable Raila Odinga on his character. I mean, really, it is expected that where Raila goes, there falls destruction. When Right Honorable Raila Odinga joined KANU, then with NDP, of course, there were wars, and then he moved out with several people and formed, joined coalition with the former president, Mwai Kibaki. And that is the history of Raila Odinga. When they also formed ODM Kenya then, he again moved out and formed ODM.
No, it's Kalonzo who moved out.
No. It is him. It is him. It used to be ODM Kenya. He actually
so
moved
Kalonzo
out and bought a
ODM
party
Kenya.
from Manyara, from Meru.
Okay.
And got ODM. And that is him. So this statement is not very new. You can remember, you can agree with me that at some point, the majority leader of the Senate once said that we know you've also come to look, to fight me. And you've actually seen, when we are talking about Right Honorable Raila Odinga fighting the Deputy President or trying to push him out of the party, some things are actually on face value. You'll notice that after the handshake, you've noticed Raila Odinga vehemently mentioning Ruto negatively. And at some point, when members of parliament from the ODM party or the leaders from the ODM party try to associate themselves with William Ruto, they are condemned. They are called names. They are called traitors and all those kind of names. And clearly that shows that, okay, fine, we have an issue. We do not have an issue with Uhuru Kenyatta, but we have an issue with William Ruto. And now that he's inside, and he's placed himself as an equal of the president, that anytime he speaks, he says, I am the president, I am the president, I am the president. He's forgetting that we also have the deputy president who is elected. So the point here is this, that you are taking the position. You want to assume the position. And that is why, if you continue playing that clip, you'll notice that the deputy president said, we know what the handshake entails, and we also know what it doesn't entail. So clearly, the deputy president is privy to the contents of the handshake. And he equally knows that probably Raila Odinga is exceeding the confines of the handshake, the agreement of the handshake. And him saying that, okay, you want to push me out, he already knows that some of the sentiments lately made by Raila Odinga and hiding in the shadow of the handshake are meant to undermine the deputy president. So he sees a plot by Raila Odinga to try and push William Ruto out. Him being a major player in 2022 politics, clearly Raila Odinga has also shown indication that he equally wants to be the president again, to try again his luck in 2022. So okay. He wants to push him out. Okay. But again, it's clear the deputy president said it's not going to be very easy, and it will never happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the problem of playing politics instead of working. Because then every action is deemed to be an action meant to try and, distract people from their perceived goal of 2022 presidency. If politics were not part of the whole scenario, if campaigns, not even politics, because everything could be politics, but if campaigns were removed from the context of the goings-on in Kenya at the moment, then Raila's actions will not be deemed to be just actions meant to, to scuttle Ruto's potential for presidency in 2022. But my fear is that the words of the deputy president just confirm what many people may have thought all this while, and most of us dismissed even on this show, that he was against the handshake. Because those very words were first the words of my very, very good friend, Professor Kindiki. Immediately after the handshake, Professor Kindiki in Meru, attending a church function, clearly came out and said, we are not going to allow Raila Odinga. This handshake is nothing about peace and tranquility. It's not about forging unity for the country. It's not about the Big Four agenda. It's entirely about selfish interest. He wants to distract us from 2022. That was the translation of the action of Raila Odinga, according to the Jubilee side, aligned to the deputy president, which is unfortunate. I wish they had seen the basis for the handshake, the 9-point agenda on which the handshake was predicated and what it portends for the country. If they had seen it for what it was beyond the campaigns of 2022, then they would appreciate that those are issues that we need to deal with. When you talk inequality in this country, it has been an issue. When I was here with Professor Kindiki, with Governor Mijungu of Tharaka at one point, I remember telling him that when we talk the handshake and when we talk about inequality, it is him who should be clapping for Raila Odinga, for the simple reason that Tharaka Nithi has been one of the most, ignored parts of this country. And that when we speak inequality, they are the most marginalized of this country and should be the people joining the bandwagon in appreciating Raila Odinga for highlighting inequality as an issue to be spoken about. When we speak about ethnic, segregation, which is fact, the deputy president, alongside with his henchmen like my friend Silvanus, should be the people joining the bandwagon and saying, you know what Raila Odinga has been able to raise and agree to with the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, are actually facts and things we need to resolve and deal with now. But however, they have decided it's about politics. That just like them, Raila is eyeing 2022, and so this whole handshake thing is a farce, it's not real. The tragedy of that is when you lose support of key players like the deputy president in the whole handshake process, then the chances that we are going to ever achieve those 9 serious salient points as put in the handshake document, the Building the Bridges Initiative document, becomes null and void. And I would hate a situation where we lose all that just because we have to play the 2022 politics.
Okay.
You see, my friend David is really trying to deviate from the real issue of that involves Honorable William Ruto and Right Honorable Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
But again, I want to say here that leadership is God-given, and it's very important for people to know that leadership is actually godly. I'm a bit too religious, and I read a good book every morning and every evening before I sleep. And I can tell you that I've come to realize that leadership is completely godly. And if you read the good book in the book of Romans chapter 13, verse 1, for those people who confine themselves in the faith of Christianity, you will agree with me that every person should submit himself to the leadership, because there is no authority in this country that is not placed by God. Whichever way you want to look at it, it is actually God that tries to put things the way he wants them to be. Be it as it may, it's very important to say this, that the president of this republic is called Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Like him, hate him, he is the president of this country. Then we have his assistant, who is the deputy president. So any person undermining an elected deputy president, and you see, this is not an appointee, it's electable, that you go there as a duo. You can't actually be elected. You can't be, previously we used to have vice presidents. That's why we are talking about the deputy president, because that was a duo. There are people who went to vote for the president because they wanted Ruto to be their deputy president. So what we are talking about is that we are dealing with the presidency. And the presidency is that we have the deputy president and the president. Now, Right Honorable Raila Odinga tried his chance for the presidency again in 2017 and lost. He tried all means. We went to the street. I was part of the people who went to the street. And I was part of the people who were tear-gassed in this city. And I know that. I want to be on record that I was among the people who never voted for the president, Uhuru Kenyatta. But I must admit that he's the president. I never voted for him. But he's the president of this country.
So you never voted for the deputy president?
I know. The second time when people were voting, we were told, we were instructed. And I want to say that we've been extremely loyal when it comes to Raila Odinga. And at times when people should be very honest to themselves, that when one is loyal to you at some point and you decide to make an independent about turn, I mean, clearly that should be respected. Now, let me say this, that even as we were doing all those things, we were promised of going to Canaan. And this should be very clear. Raila Odinga promised us that we are going to Canaan. And trust me, I was one of the passengers of that vehicle, where Raila Odinga was the driver, and he had drivers in the name of His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, the former Vice President, and the Honorable Moses Wetangula. Now, us as the passengers who are leaders and the other Kenyans who believed in Raila Odinga, along the way, just got to realize that the driver has jumped over. He left us. He left actually the bus moving. We were going to Canaan. And you see, he jumped over. He never talked to the car driver. The car driver, who is Kalonzo Musyoka, never talked to Musalia Mudavadi, never talked to Honorable Moses Wetangula. And they left. The car was actually in motion. The driver is off. And we're inside. So what were we to do? What we did is that we jumped off.
This guy, this is the problem. This is the problem. This is the problem of passengers sleeping in the bus.
What we did,
they don't know that the driver just invited a co-driver.
The driver gave excuses. The driver gave excuses, or after the other side.
Did this car crash?
Actually,
did it crash?
Now the car crashed.
Noisy and messy crash.
Now, unfortunately, it wasn't noisy because by the time the driver was jumping off, it was already the slow motion. Okay. So the only option the driver had, because he knew his car could not get to that cannon, he jumped over to the vehicle that was more speedier per se, if I use that term, and moved to that vehicle, which is Jubilee. Now, this is now the most unfortunate part. We all jumped from this vehicle. Some of us jumped from this vehicle, and there are people who are living in denial who are still there. We jumped from this vehicle because we had to survive, to go to Canaan, to the vehicle that was moving.
Yes.
Now, when we jumped there, some of us sat behind the deputy president. Others sat behind Right Honorable Raila Odinga. The saddest part is this, is that the driver that we are having is the president. That is the truth. That is okay, that is not sad. Now, the saddest part is that the person who jumped over as a passenger is instructing other passengers like us that now you guys do not be focusing on the co-driver. Focus on the driver. Yet, he's also a passenger in that vehicle. The leaders of that vehicle are two. The President of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and the co-driver is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that, and now the driver is trying, the passenger is inciting the people who jumped with him, and he's telling them, you know what you guys need to do? Push this co-driver out of the vehicle so that I remain there, so that I sit as a co-driver. He's actually instructing his people to push the co-driver, and they found the co-driver there.
Okay.
So Raila Odinga is dishonest with this handshake, and I'm saying that with authority, because how do you tell us that you want peace in this country, but you do not want people to engage other leaders? Engage every elected leaders.
Okay, I'm coming back to talk about this. No. We are discussing the same thing you have been discussing there now with my panel, and we are joined, Ken, right now with Kitutu Churches South Member of Parliament Richard Onyonka, also joining in this discussion. Ken Muredi, discussing what we have essentially discussed, but now it's good it's coming from Dori himself, and I think he has suggested that he will be attending, which is one thing that the party was worried about yesterday when they said that perhaps he will not be attending. So, Mheshimiwa Karibu, we've been discussing a lot of things, and we are discussing currently the suggestion by the Deputy President William Ruto that Raila Odinga intends to push him away from the party. And I think before we bring you into the conversation, David was going to respond to what Mheshimiwa Osoro was saying about this.
Foremost, I think I am grateful that Dori has decided to go for that disciplinary. It's the right thing to do. You're a member of the party. You may have divergent opinions. Go and express your divergence from the party stand. Go and seek explanations to a few of the things that you disagree with. Go and showcase your standpoint on this matter. And that said, I have seen the clip. I had just reiterated earlier that it seems to me that the Deputy President does not support the handshake.
No.
Because he's just repeated the words that Professor Kindiki had earlier intimated, saying Raila has come to destroy. But I had said, and I'm going to repeat it, that if we removed politics of 2022 from this and focused on the things that we will achieve if we supported the Building the Bridges initiative, I speak as a person who knows that a country's future is secured by creating laws and policies today that take care of its tomorrow. If we do not resolve the problems we've had for this past more than 50 years today, and we expect that the future will be any different, then it's going to be problematic. We have clashes today in Joro. We have clashes in Mount Narok. Why? You think they're happening by mistake? Aren't they the same problems we've had over the years? Issues around land and stuff like that, and resources, are they not addressed in the Building the Bridges initiative document? Then why don't we support it and just remove our political emotions from the process and the perception that one person is trying to undercut the other, so that we all channel our energies towards achieving what that document entails? That is why I said, and I gave a very balanced opinion, that whoever, whether it's Orengo saying Raila should go 2022, must seize, or Silvanus saying that it is Ruto for 2022, we must seize these conversations around 2022, channel our energies. Let each of them say, as the senator of Siaya County, I want to see what we have been able to achieve with affordable housing under the Big Four agenda, or the processes laid down towards achieving that for Siaya County, or for South Mugirango constituency. Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, from where you sit, we have talked about this with the two gentlemen here, but from where you sit, is there even a possibility that Raila Odinga is able to do what he did in Kanu right now in Jubilee Party?
I'll be honest with you, yes and no. Yes, because history sometimes does repeat itself. But at the same time, Raila has become much more wiser. And I think to a large extent, to me, the interpretation we have right now is that the roles have actually been swapped. Right now, it is Deputy President who's, if you want to use the term, under siege. And right now, it is Raila who is trying to sell himself as somebody who is more agreeable, more admissible, and more acceptable to the ruling class. The issues we have are very simple. I actually, I'm in a catch-22. I tend to agree with both these two gentlemen. Number one, my brother is 100% right. This country needs certain things to be done right. The problem with this country is that we are political 24/7. Every single thing in this country, if you get into a matatu now, it's politics. If you get into a barber shop, it's politics. If you go for lunch in a restaurant, people are talking politics. You go to social groups, it is politics. You go to parliament, of course, is where the politics is. And I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, shouldn't we as a people get to a point where we are now, we should be in a position where we sit and discuss the critical issues. And that is where the weakness of the handshake is. Nobody knows what the handshake is about. Nobody understands structurally whether there is any legal framework, whether there is any framework whatsoever to guide, other than the initiative which exists whereby the president and the deputy and Honorable Raila, the prime minister, picked up individuals and gave them a mandate to go and discuss on what the Building Bridges initiative is going to be. And this is where, for example, you find my party leader, Moses Wetangula, is really upset. He's saying, we were in NASA with Prime Minister Raila. We were the people who were telling him that maybe it didn't make sense for us to go and have Raila sworn in as a president, because legally Uhuru had been given the instruments of power, because he had been declared the presidential candidate and he had won the elections and he had been sworn in by Maraga. Raila then jumps out of that. He then moves on to go and have a negotiated settlement with his enemy. At that time, it was President Uhuru. He then comes with Uhuru and says, now me and Uhuru have agreed and everybody else can go to hell. This is the problem you have even with the deputy president. Under such an initiative, to me, the deputy president should have been given a responsibility to play, a role to play in this initiative. His face should be seen there. Even when Raila's face is being seen, the deputy president's face should be seen there, so that we all move together as a team. The truth and the reality is, the president has a negotiated settlement with his arch enemy, who's called Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. They have got together and agreed on something. That's something nobody knows about it. We are being told we are now going for the referendum. Nobody understands the issues of the referendum that we are going to discuss. Even you, if you are a deputy president of a country, you would be ranting crazy. The DP is upset because it looks like there is something being done, being organized, being choreographed without his express engagement. And that's how I interpret it.
Okay, very interesting indeed. I still want to talk about this, but we understand that Raila Odinga has already arrived in County 044, that's Migori County, where they are campaigning for Ochila Yako, the senatorial candidate for this election, and obviously he's one of the front runners in this election. So as soon as Raila Odinga begins to speak, we will be able to cross over to Migori County for that. But back in studio, gentlemen, this does not, I have had all your submissions on this very single fact that now bothers a lot of Kenyans, but the fact that it came from the deputy president himself. We are forgetting one person. During the time Kithure Kindiki spoke about it, this is a gentleman, a member of parliament, who was even more clear on this, more coherent. He said, we know the history of Raila Odinga. He walks in and walks out. I can't just remember who it was. But the fact that it comes from the deputy president himself, a lot of people are reading a fear in the deputy president that he can even be aimed at. Forget about him saying it will not happen.
No, you see, the point here is this, and I think my brother, Honorable Richard, has put it very well. However, I need to say the point that the deputy president is actually trying to put across is that he is privy to the contents of the handshake. He is actually privy to the agreement. And to me, he's ranting, if you have to go that direction, is about that, right? The person, Raila Amolo Odinga, is exceeding the agreement of the, or the content of the handshake, and now uses it for his political mileage. And by the way, if there is a person who is dishonest in this whole thing, in my opinion, is Raila Amolo Odinga. I mean, if you clearly had, fine, anytime Raila Amolo Odinga speaks, anytime he utters anything, whichever, even in public and everything, he puts himself as an equal to the president, and then he undermines the deputy president. And the deputy president comes out and says, okay, fine.
Does he do it expressly or by action?
He does it expressly.
Expressly, exactly. Undermines by words,
by words.
By words, okay.
By words. He says, oh, there are other people. In fact, at some point, he used some story and said, okay, we're going to Canaan. We got some crocodile in river, Jordan or something. I don't know, I saw yesterday, Aisha Juma responded very well. I mean, that is a holy river. There is nothing like a crocodile. But now, the point here is that is very true. So the deputy president is privy to the contents of the handshake. And they find Raila Odinga very dishonest when he comes out and says, you know, we are going to do this. And he speaks with authority as though he holds the instruments of power. And by the way, it's like I was actually somewhere with the Honorable Richard. He's actually spoken what I've been saying here. That you see, Raila Odinga left the bus he was driving and without discussing anything with his co-drivers. And then now here he's telling people that, you know, now I'm in this other bus and I'm controlling this other bus. I'm equally controlling this other bus. You guys must follow me or go to hell. And you see, that is a very wrong kind of way of operating. And by the way, Raila Odinga could not have shook hands with the president if the president was again running in 2022. So clearly, if there is a person who is playing politics, the whole thing is Raila Odinga. However, there is something that Richard has said about, you know, our Kenyan culture, about politics, and that is very true. We've made politics our sports. You know, we've made politics our sports. Look, here today we are in the media house, we're discussing about politics. We are not discussing about anything else. So we've really made politics our sports. It's all over. And we need to live with that fact, that our sports as of now is actually politics. But it should not be taken that when we define, or rather when we express ourselves with our interest, or we express ourselves with what we want, if Ruto says that he wants to be president in 2022, why should he stop him? Why should somebody say that you are campaigning? Why should David say that, you know, we are campaigning at the expense? Why should I be gagged? Why am I gagged of my interest? I mean, really, if you do not want to discuss
because
about
you lose
politics,
the focus.
have I lost the focus? I asked him a very good question, that when I'm commissioning a Kenya Medical Training College in Nyamarambe, in South Mugirango constituency, and I talk about 2022, how does my talk stop the construction from ongoing? How do I lose focus? Clearly. I mean, we are discussing politics and we're doing development. And by the way, development is ongoing. The person who is doing politics right now without development is Raila Odinga. Now look, today he's in Migori. He's gone there because he's desperately fighting to make sure that he gets the senator from that other side. Because influence is also going down. Defiance has risen up. I saw people the other day, you know, on the taxation bill, even after having a meeting with the NASA leadership, they still came to the house and said, okay, fine, we are not going to follow what Raila has told us. Because people have actually known that, you see, we cannot be talking about, you know, development of paying,
that
development of victim.
That cut across the board, even Jubilee members of parliament.
And that kind of defiance, yes, it shows clearly that people have thought, by the way, and this I must say, you see, Jubilee, people defied the president. But none of them has been gagged, none of them has been punished, there is no retribution against any member of Jubilee. But look, now that it's NASA that fronted some of us in committees, today they want to oust me, they want me out of defense committee because I went against the taxation bill. I mean, really, clearly, this is a dictatorial leadership.
No. But when Honorable Alfred Keter and the rest, Honorable Tiren, were given positions in the committees, you saw what happened with Jubilee.
No, but
it's usually
not really. I need to respond on the same. You cannot pull the deputy president Alfred Keter's issue. You see,
but why?
committee membership and committee leadership is voted by members. So if members felt, even if it's out of any instruction, if they felt that they did now to get him out, that was okay.
Voted him in.
But now Alfred Keter decided, but he ought to have fought again and said, okay,
no,
fine,
he
you know,
fought,
it's
but
about
he was told
campaign.
he will be de-whipped.
He was de-whipped, of course.
He spoke to me and they said, it can't happen.
The truth of the matter is, there is a big difference. There is no double standards.
It's double standards.
I must say
You're
this.
speaking from both sides of the lips?
No, not necessarily. The truth of the matter here is this. At that particular time, you know, there was a lot of heat within the House, and formations had to be formed. I think the government had to take a position by itself because they were, that time, you know, Jubilee and NASA.
Essentially what we are agreeing is that it happens across.
At this
Jubilee
particular
can do it.
That is true. That is true.
Yes.
But now, on the taxation thing, how do you then want to, you know, remove members who defied Raila Odinga from committees? For what reason? I mean, can't we think independently?
Okay, very good. And I see President Uhuru Kenyatta has arrived at Jamhuri Park. That's where the trade fair is currently underway and ongoing for the next 4 days. And we also have the live feed from the county of Migori, where Raila Odinga is campaigning for Ochila Yako for the senatorial seat, and we'll be crossing to Jamhuri Park later. But those are live pictures of President Uhuru Kenyatta laying a stone for, not sure where. Perhaps Mule will be telling us later on, because he didn't tell us early this would happen. But let's come back to studio. And I know we haven't finished this point, and I want you gentlemen also to respond to that fact that it's coming straight from the Deputy President. Does it show that he's afraid it could happen? Because for you to come out and speak that strongly, it means it's not only a hunch you're having, it's credible, it's something that is solid that you have said. Let me go to Mheshimiwa.
I think, thank you for giving me this chance again. For me, maybe the point I want to make is that it is true. There is a need and a desire as we sit here in this studio. Out here in Kenya, a lot of people are praying and hoping that, in fact, there would be a semblance of engagement between the President, the Deputy President, and the Prime Minister Raila, former Prime Minister, so that they can come together and eliminate the friction that is seen out here publicly. The statement that the Deputy President gave made a lot of people very worried, because it was a precise statement. It was very, very, very critical against Raila. And a lot of people started thinking about the issues which have been affecting this country politically. In fact, a lot of people saying, here we are now, it looks like we're going to start fighting between the Deputy President and Raila. Then the usual, you go to 2007, you have this tribal clashes thing coming up, you've got all the politicians up in arms. I honestly do believe that we can work together, agree to disagree on certain things, and I believe that we can actually be reasonable and sensible to each other. I just think what I agree with my brother is that at some point, this country needs a certain calmness and a certain level of peace. And as usual, the public is very worried about the political class, how we behave. And the truth is, Deputy President Ruto has a large segment of this country. Former Prime Minister Raila has a large segment of this country. The President rules this country, and he has got also a certain percentage. And the other political leaders, you have got Musalia, Wetangula from Western Kenya. You have, the truth is, we can't be in a position right now where we are going to be at war with each other.
Okay, we can afford it.
And the feeling that is out here right now, a lot of people, in fact, right now the feeling I have is that even in Parliament, many of us are worried and saying, how can we look for a way on how to get Prime Minister Raila, Vice President, Deputy President William Ruto, and Uhuru, and even Musalia and Weta, to even meet and have a cup of tea.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're talking about next after the break. We're going to talk about the referendum. But before we speak about the referendum, perhaps...
Let me just say, peace and stability are very fundamental drivers of any economy, without which the economy will have shocks. When you create a situation where we are already seeing a potential conflict between two of, leading politicians in the country, as Richard has put it, you will soon have fearful countries giving unnecessary travel advisories. Okay. We still have 4 years ahead of us. 4 years to do business, 4 years to make a good image of this country, 4 years to attract tourists, 4 years to attract, investors. No one is going to come into a country that looks polarized already. And I want to urge, you see, all these are done based on a presumption that Raila Odinga is running in 2022. Yet he himself has constantly, he's never denied or accepted, but I do not remember where he has publicly said that he's running for office. I know his foot soldiers would encourage him to run. It's good for them. But I want us to focus. The fears seen in the country at the moment, even in clashes, the clashes in Joro or in Mao Narok have been attributed to the various things, including politics already. This is 2018. And we already have those clashes and lives lost already. If we stepped down the politics, if we addressed the issues captured in the Building the Bridges initiative, or the Handshake as it is commonly known, if we genuinely put our heart, soul, and mind towards securing this country's future by resolving its major problems now, and if the Deputy President were to jump on board as a part and parcel of it, because Richard says that he doesn't feel enjoined in this negotiation. But when he was asked, were you aware? The Deputy President himself said, and I bet you have the clip, that he knew that the President was going to meet the former Prime Minister, and that they were going to chart a path forward for the country. So how is it again that he feels that the process that was meant for the good of the country has become detrimental for his ambition in 2022?
All right, gentlemen, I'm told we are out of time. I thought we'll have time to speak about referendum, but the president has arrived at Jamhuri Park. So I'll give you just a minute each to close this discussion, then I'll let you go. You've been here since 9. All right. Let me begin with you, Mheshimiwa, as we close.
I would like to say, for me, fortunately, I've been a member of parliament for quite a long time. Our country runs better, it feels better, and make people comfortable, like my brothers have said here. I would pray and hope that there will be a way on how we work together as a country. I hope that the DP will continue, because he's a leader now. He's been a leader for a while. I believe that the Deputy President, in one way or the other, must look for a way on how he can engage with Raila, even when many of us may think that Raila and William Ruto may not be friends. I believe that there should be a way they can discuss, and let us try and tone down on the noises which are coming out because of the disagreements which are political.
All right, David.
This country is bigger than the 2022 politics. It will come and go and leave us with this country. We need to be able to marshal all the politicians to engage on how do we make this country better, not how do we make the DP president in 2022, or how do we make Raila president in 2022, or anyone else. All the energies ought to be channeled towards meaningful improvement of lives and standards of living in the country. That can only happen if we decide to back by word and action the initiatives laid down to improve the livelihoods of the Kenyans, whether it's in health sector or improving infrastructure, or engaging in securing ourselves in terms of food security, and creating jobs and opportunities for the young people in this country. Until we do that, all these things will count for nothing.
All right, finally,
myself now, leaders should be very honest in their actions, and I think it's very important for the top leadership of this country to be honest. Raila Odinga knows the content of the handshake should actually not exceed that content of the agreement. And the president, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, had a promise earlier. He said that he'll be the president for 10 years and leaves to William Ruto. That should be the promise, and it must fulfill it. I mean, really, we need to be very honest when we speak.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Richard Onjonka, David Osiany, and of course, Silvanus Dori for speaking to us.